Thanks for joining us. In this audit, we looked at the government's management of the risks posed by climate change. Climate change is one of the greatest challenges the world is facing. Here in BC, we're also feeling the impacts of climate change. Managing climate change requires two responses: mitigation and adaptation. Mitigation focuses on reducing greenhouse gas emissions, while adaptation focuses on reducing potential harm from climate change. Both mitigation and adaptation are needed to create a climate-resilient province. The BC government has a lot of work underway to adapt to climate change, but it's not adequately managing the risks to the province that climate change poses, nor does it have a plan to move forward on adaptation. Government also faces significant challenges in addressing the climate-related risks of flood, wildfire, and drought. In addition, BC will likely not meet its 2020 emissions reduction target. From 1900 to 2013, BC's average temperature increased faster than the global average. The province will face increases in extreme weather, rising sea levels, and risk of wildfire and flooding. Plus, we'll see a change in the location of ecosystems and the species that live here. In the wildfires last summer, more hectares of the province burned than in the previous 7 years combined. And heavy rains last spring in the Okanagan, along with the snowmelt, caused extensive flooding. These events, and many more around the province, highlight the environmental, economic, and social threats that climate change poses to BC. As well, BC emits 9% of Canada's greenhouse gas emissions, mainly from transportation and the combustion of fuel to produce energy and heat. We carried out this audit to determine whether the BC government is adequately managing the risks posed by climate change. We looked at government's responses to climate change through the lenses of adaptation and mitigation. First, let's look at adaptation. Again, adaptation means reducing the potential harms from climate change. For example, building dikes to prevent damage from rising sea levels. We found that government hasn't comprehensively assessed the risks posed by climate change, and it doesn't have a plan to move forward on adaptation. That said, and you can see examples in the report, ministries certainly have work underway, and they're building a foundation of knowledge by working with scientists, developing tools, and incorporating adaptation into their business planning. However, a lack of mandates and limited resources and capacity appear to be obstacles to implementing adaptation. We also found that there are gaps in climate data, which is necessary for risk assessment, planning, and informed investments. Government faces significant challenges in 3 key areas: flood, wildfire, and drought. Government may not be able to effectively manage increasing flood risks in the province. Challenges with the current approach include distributed roles and responsibilities, a lack of staffing and technical capacity within the provincial and local governments, outdated floodplain maps, and limited incentives for local governments to take action. In addition, much of the province's diking infrastructure will likely not be sufficient in the face of increasing flood risks. Similarly, government's wildfire prevention activities, such as eliminating fuel like debris, twigs, and branches from forests, are not sufficient, and they need to be both coordinated and target areas of highest risk. Mitigating and adapting to climate change isn't just a provincial government issue. Local governments are often on the front lines of climate change, yet they face significant challenges in adapting to climate change, including a lack of support from the provincial government. Let's look now at mitigation, which focuses on what we do to decrease emissions. This includes things like lowering industrial and vehicle emissions and increasing the energy efficiency of buildings. We found that government has not taken adequate action to meet provincial emission reduction targets. The Climate Leadership Plan does not build a clear and measurable pathway to meeting BC's emission reduction targets, and BC will likely not meet the 2020 emissions reduction target. Models also suggest that on the current trajectory, BC will not meet the 2050 target. For a climate-resilient province, we need both mitigation and adaptation. As such, we've made 17 recommendations for government to improve its response to climate change. We summarize them in the themes that you see here, and you can read them in detail in the Summary of Recommendations section of our report. Although we looked at just a sample of ministries for this audit, other ministries should consider our findings in relation to their operations. Finally, this audit is unique in that it was part of a Canada-wide collaborative audit project on climate change. The work was done to determine the extent to which federal, provincial, and territorial governments in Canada are meeting commitments to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and adapt to climate change. A summary of these audit reports will be released by the Canadian Commissioner for Environment and Sustainable Development in spring 2018. Thanks for joining us for a summary of this report. To read this report and others, or for more information about the office, please visit our website at www.bcauditor.com.